Hey, Minnesota Vikings sports fans, you are listening to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle West. I am accompanied this week by the one and only Adam Carlson.
Yeah, and I'm coming to you on the probably cheapest rig that I've ever bought with my $88 Chromebook here and my $15 ring light and my HP mouse that I found in a cabinet. So this is quite a setup, and so far I think it's doing all right.
Yeah, actually, you sound really good, too. I don't know if you upgraded your microphone or what.
I'm using my Turtle Beach headset from my Xbox
Yeah.
for this, so
Yeah.
I mean the other one's a Turtle Beach too, but yeah, I'm liking this. This could work.
This one must have more turtles than the other headset.
Oh, lots more turtles.
You definitely sound a lot more clear. So it's going to be just you and I this week. Kyle Smith is out. He is in a corner crying because of how bad that Vikings game was, and so he could not join us. I'm kidding. Well, maybe. I don't know. He might be crying over the loss.
I'll have to check out his live stream to see how he's doing.
Yeah, definitely. So we are going to talk about a football game, Adam, that neither you nor I are all that excited to sit here and do.
No, I don't blame Mr. Smith for sitting this one out, even if he didn't have to. I would probably have thought the same, but I can only fake being sick so many times to miss a podcast.
Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us. On the positive, we can use the same line that Mike Zimmer is going to use with the media. Well, it's a short week, and we're on to Thursday already.
Yeah, the whole we didn't play good enough, and that's on me. That one was a strange quote.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was that they didn't play well enough. I think the players did exactly what was asked of them, but I think what was asked of them was absolutely terrible.
How about them Lions? They had to get their first win, so of course it was going to be against the Minnesota Vikings. You bring up an interesting point, Adam. We have used the word conservative to describe kind of Mike Zimmer's approach to coaching. And after this game, I don't think conservative is really the right word to describe what the Vikings' overall philosophy is. There's no logic behind it.
Well, the thing is if you're going to gamble, you gamble on things with decent odds. When you roll the dice on a 2-point conversion and draw up a play with probably a 15% chance of success, don't do it.
Yeah.
When you go for 2 points 3 times, those three points could have forced the Lions to either go for 2 for the win or kick the extra point to go to overtime. So those decisions to go for 2 bit the Vikings. Going for it on 4th down bit the Vikings. And again, all those play calls, every one of them, were terrible. And this is not even to mention the defense on the final drive of this game, because I just could not handle watching this Vikings defense, which has talent. There are talented players on that defense. Mm-hmm. Watching them let the Lions walk right down the field and throw a touchdown to win the game.
We need to remember, all of us collectively, that Jared Goff is terrible. He is a terrible quarterback.
If you get a defender anywhere near him, he panics and he throws bad footballs. So what do? You send 3 rushers, not even 4, 3?
I know we're banged up, but we just go into a prevent defense and get absolutely no pressure on Jared Goff, who, frankly, you would be hard pressed to find anyone who thinks Jared Goff is going to be anything more than a journeyman backup quarterback after this season. And we let him drive down the field like he was. What was the year they
with no name receivers, his star receiver or star running back on the bench. I mean, this Detroit Lions team tried to give this game to Minnesota. They came out and they scored 20 points in the first half. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they did almost nothing. Minnesota, on the other hand, scored 6 points in the first half and then did almost all their work in the second half. The fact that Minnesota can't put a full game together, can't make the right decisions, can't execute, and can't put a game away is absolutely disgusting. And it's not like this is a situation that the Vikings aren't used to. We've seen Minnesota in this situation where they're up or down at the end of a game, and they do the most ridiculous things to allow the team to come right back in, whether it's scoring extra points or turning the ball over or whatever. This Minnesota Vikings football. This is the closest I've ever been to saying, okay, blow it up and start it over. Because this is a game Minnesota should have won. They should have won pretty handily, even with all the injuries. And honestly, I don't think it was on the players.
I don't put this on the players either, Adam. And like I said, I want to go back to that point where it's not just conservative play calling, because you can make a case for, hey, we're going to run the ball through Dalvin Cook and whatever, and like I understand that philosophy, that general philosophy from this team.
Right.
It's not just being conservative; it's just being generally inept in your game plan, knowing how to use your players. Knowing, why did my TV set just turn on? Weird. I don't.
What are we watching?
I don't know why it just. That's just the default like Android like background screen. I don't know why it did that. But it's just that general ineptitude, Adam. It's the decision making of we're gonna move our right guard, who's not very good, to left tackle and shuffle around the inside of the offensive line when you have a backup left tackle who you started for 5 games at the beginning of the season, and then when Christian was ready to come back, you still went ahead and rotated the 2 players because you weren't ready to just give Christian the nod at starting. But you're going to keep him on the bench, and you're going to move the right guard who's not good at left tackle, and left tackle is like, in my hierarchy of like
important offensive players, it's very high.
Yes, of like just difficult positions to play in the NFL. I think quarterback is probably number 1. I'm going to put corner at number 2 and left tackle at number 3. You're going to do that? You're not putting players in a... I'm not even mad at the offensive line. You didn't put them in a position to succeed.
No, it was ridiculous. And Cole has outplayed Bradbury at center, yet Bradbury got to start at center over Cole.
Why?
The more I've looked at what the Vikings are doing this season, I just wonder, are they just throwing darts? What is the scheme here? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to... Was this a legitimate attempt to see if Oli Udoh could play left tackle? Is that what this was?
And if it was, why are you doing that when
you're trying to make a run at the playoffs?
We're barely floating around 500, trying to make the playoffs. The season is what we say, 5 games left.
Yeah.
Why are you experimenting with players like it's the 3rd week of training camp in Mankato or wherever they practice now?
Egan.
Like this is not Egan. This is not the time to be practicing and just like, well, let's see what happens with our players. I don't get it. That is the decision making that gets coaches fired, Adam. Not so much the, well, we're conservative and we want to run the ball through Cook and whatever. Like, I don't like that, but I can understand that philosophy. It's this mess right here that you don't recover from.
It really is, and it's been absolutely terrible. I do not understand this Vikings team, and I want to. I feel like I understand football fairly well, but then things like this come along, and I'm just baffled.
Yeah. Do you think if we played Sunday or Monday, Zimmer would be gone? So my personal thought process here is that we've got however many more games left, 5 more games in the regular season. Zimmer is going to coach those 5 out. I don't think that there is a scenario in which that they fire him mid-season. And in a roundabout way, I don't know if we want the interim head coach thing.
I think the Wilfs have enough respect for Zimmer that they won't fire him mid-season.
Yeah,
I do think that it'll be as soon as this offseason hits, they'll announce, hey, we're going to go our separate ways, which is going to say they're going to fire him.
We're gonna
And
we've decided to mutually part ways, or
right. That's what they're going to do.
maybe Mike Zimmer will even retire. We've talked
Right.
about that
That's
as well
another
too.
option too.
Yeah, maybe he wants. I don't know. I could see that happening where Zimmer, hey, he wants to go spend time on his ranch with the grandkids, and
Right.
he's going to retire, and that also leaves the door open for in a couple months he has an opportunity as a positional coach somewhere. He can come out of retirement and do that, and it's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were talking about there, Michael Cambria. We were talking about how we love the old school philosophy of football. You can run the ball well, you can play good defense, you can control the clock, you can play mistake-free football, and that will generally lead to wins. But at some point, you have to adapt a little bit to the modern NFL. You've got to be able to use that passing game to open up the run, and not always vice versa. And the way that Zimmer's approach defensively isn't starting to work anymore because teams are catching on to everything that he's been doing, yet adjustments aren't really being made. And Zimmer, I don't want to say this as a fact because I don't know this for a fact, but I don't think he, as much as he probably sits in on meetings and pays attention, I just don't trust his ability to run an offense, and I don't think he really understands how to run an offense. I don't know if he wants to.
He doesn't want to. I think that's the main thing. But and again, we don't know because I'm not present in meetings. But
right.
I get the feeling based on reports that I've heard, and just the fact that, Zimmer and Cousins are just now finally carving out an hour every Thursday to sit down and drink some coffee and talk football, that it tells me that Zimmer has not been actively engaged in the offensive side of this ball for his tenure with the team. And I wish that he would have found a way to get himself a coordinator that he could just give 100% faith into to let them run that side of the ball, because the team would have been better off for that.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, but then at that point, you have a defensive coordinator as a head coach, and you're kind of wasting the position. It's a situation that I don't think there's a winner, and I think that's why Minnesota's going to have to move on from Zimmer. I've liked Zimmer. There have been some fantastic moments under the Zimmer regime. He's been one of the most entertaining head coaches. You can tell he's clearly passionate about this team, but this team is swimming around and they can't seem to get any momentum, any direction. They're not bad enough to move on. They're not good enough to be contenders. Sadly, the Minnesota Vikings are starting to feel like the Andy Daltons of the NFL.
Yeah. We've talked about that in our private chat before too, where it's like with Kirk Cousins, especially at your quarterback, where you're in that weird Andy Dalton Bengals territory where you're like, you can win some games. You're not going to win enough games, but you can
right.
You can win some games, and every now and then you can overachieve. Maybe you can get a wild card spot. You're not going to do much more than that.
No.
So it comes down to how complacent this fan base wants to be with that. And I think you're seeing a lot of Vikings fans being pretty vocal about how we don't want our Super Bowl to be we beat Green Bay at Green Bay every 3 seasons. Every 3
I
4
felt
years.
really bad. Like when Packer fans came out after Minnesota beat Green Bay, they were like, well, you guys won your Super Bowl. And I was like, calm down. There isn't really more to the Vikings than beating Green Bay. And now the more that I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, are they right?
They're kind of right. Kind of right. And that's why, to go back to, we've got a couple comments talking about Andre Patterson, that if the team is willing to move on from Mike Zimmer, I think we all believe that's going to happen.
Right.
If they're willing to move on from Rick Spielman, that's a bigger if, but I could see that happening as well too.
Well, I don't think it would be Clint Kubiak. I don't think it would be Adam Zimmer. I think Patterson would be the only choice if Zimmer is fired mid-season.
Right. I guess I just don't know what what are we firing him mid-season for? He hasn't lost the team. Like, yeah, I think the players still respect him.
After this game, I don't know. I'd kind of like to be in that locker room and hear what's going on because
okay,
I'm not really sure what's happening.
let me rephrase. I bet a lot of the veteran defensive players still respect Mike Zimmer. Your Patrick Petersons, your Anthony Barrs, your Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith. I think those guys probably still have a lot of respect for him. Now, if you were to ask Justin Jefferson in a one-on-one situation, Adam
Where
Thielen,
he was being completely honest.
yeah, where they're being completely honest, probably not so much respect for Mike Zimmer. So I don't quite think, and I don't think we will enter kind of the Brad Childress phase of you've just completely lost the locker room. Like, I don't think that will happen.
Did you see all the Vikings legends coming out of the woodwork after this game on Twitter, talking about how terrible that game was?
I seen Mike Tice.
Oh, it was really bad. But yeah, Thomas Peters there. I have heard that when it was announced that when that rumor I first heard it, they said that Minnesota was doing due diligence, and I bet you that diligence is getting a little bit stronger. And honestly, right now, I believe if this was the final game of the season and Minnesota lost to Detroit, that Zimmer would be fired. He has 5 games. Yeah. If he can rattle off 4 wins out of these 5, he might be able to save his job. He might.
I don't think so. It's going to be. It would be. That would be another miracle, another Minneapolis miracle, if Zimmer is able to save his job like that. Like, I just don't foresee that happening. I personally think they need a fresh set of eyes from the top down.
I hope that's not a pun on Zimmer's eyesight.
No, it really wasn't. But you know, it could be a pun. But no, I really do think that they just need a new mentality from the top, from Spielman on down, to look at this roster and say,
I typically love defensive head coaches, but it might be time for Minnesota to look at a really creative offensive mind to be the new head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
Because of exactly what Michael brought up right here. If they don't get in that offensive-minded coach and is able to build this team around Justin Jefferson, and yes, Justin Jefferson is a top 5 receiver talent-wise in this league. You build your franchise around him. He is going to be gone. He's not going to stick around after his rookie contract.
And how did KJ Osborne not get any attention his rookie year?
Yeah.
Was he that bad the previous year that he just couldn't get on the field offensively? Because he made some really good plays in this game. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give him my game ball. Because he stepped up when Thielen went down, and he's going to start as the wide receiver 2 against Pittsburgh on Thursday. He has to. Because he is the best player on the field at wide receiver other than Justin Jefferson if Adam Thielen is not healthy.
Yes. That's why I think that Minnesota is an attractive option for a head coach GM combo to come in. Because, yeah, you've got to rebuild. Like, clearly, you don't lose as many games as what the Vikings have in the fashion that they have without needing to rebuild some of the roster. But there's talent here. Justin Jefferson is a big get. I still think that just based on the draft class coming out and the pool of free agent quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins is probably our guy for at least one more season.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens. I know fans are up and down about what they think of Kirk, but you can still win games with Kirk Cousins.
Kirk's not the problem.
No, that's a piece that I think if you get the right coach, the right philosophy around him, you could win with him for another couple seasons until you figure out what you're doing, what you're doing next with him.
But we also have players that are getting older, players that are getting more banged up. Next year, Anthony Barr is probably not here. Next year, although Harrison Smith just signed a bigger contract to stay in Minnesota, I think he'll stay in Minnesota, but you never know. I think that Armon Watts has come close to outplaying Michael Pierce. So, yeah, I mean, there are some real big decisions that have to be made on this team regarding salary cap and starters. But the good news is that right now the Vikings have Justin Jefferson on a really cheap deal, his rookie deal. They can keep doing what they're doing with him while they get some of this other stuff figured out. And some of the guys they plugged in on defense during this game played their hearts out. And even Cameron Dantzler had himself a good game. Meanwhile, Bashad Breeland had one of the most struggling days where he gave up a ton of yardage and a touchdown. And he's somehow gets a little bit more praise just because he's a veteran. And I don't get that. If your younger players are playing so well, let them out of the doghouse. Give them a little bit more slack. I know that this is not the old school mentality, but dang, I mean, you got to put your best players out there in the position to let you win games. And we talked about that offensive line decision. That was not putting your best players out there.
No, not at all. That's also a prime example of the Vikings overthinking a situation where I think that they thought they were putting their best players in a position to succeed when literally everyone, as soon as that was announced, that's what they were doing with the offensive line, was like, well, Detroit's going to win this game.
Yep.
Every single one of us knew that was going to be a mess.
Did you see anyone on social media in our comments or anything saying, oh, well, let's see how he does at left tackle. And I bet you it's going to be good. The Vikings have got this. It's a good decision.
Not a one of us. Not a person out there, Adam. I don't know who made that decision. I
Unless there's something going on in the background with Rashad Hill. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's hurt. I don't know. Maybe that's what happened. But even then, you got Cole moving him to right guard. And you got Bradbury at center, where Bradbury's been worse. But maybe he isn't good at right guard. The more I sit here and try to figure out, Minnesota's had an opportunity to fix this offensive line too many times. Mm-hmm. They've used draft picks. They've brought in big money free agents. And every time, nothing works out.
That comes down to Spielman.
Is it coaching? Is it drafting? Is it just not being able to evaluate talent? What is the issue here?
I don't know either. And that's a frustrating thing about the Vikings, too, is where when we lose a starter, we're screwed when it comes in to happen to put it back up in, because that's what happens every single time.
But we've said this too. Like Watts, I felt he played really good. Both linebackers that played in place of Kendricks and Barr, I thought they played quite well. Dantzler stepped in pretty well for Patrick Peterson. Honestly, on the defensive side of the ball, I didn't see that many problems as far as the players that were out there, but it was the schemes and the plays they were running that made no sense.
Yeah. Hey, there's a good segue for another point I wanted to bring up. We talk about just the game passing by Mike Zimmer and these questionable decisions that get made with this team. So we have a player that we drafted, our running back from Iowa State. He's been really good on kick returns. And we've talked about how he'd be a good piece to get like a package involved in the game for.
Oh, yeah, if you can get a screen pass to him, that'd be pretty.
What is his skill set, Adam? You're going to get him in space. You're going to get him in space. Get him some blockers in front of him and in space, and let him use that speed. Make some plays. What do the Vikings do? What do the Vikings actually do with him?
Run him up the gut.
Just run it right up the gut.
Yet they'll take Madison, a runner who's doesn't really have a great acceleration, doesn't have a great top speed, but he's a bowling ball. He can go through people, and we saw that on Sunday. Yeah. He fought so hard for that touchdown, and I was so glad to see him get in. But when you take him and you try to make him go out wide on a run, the way that play develops, Dalvin Cook can run that because he's faster. Yeah. He accelerates faster. Madison's not that guy. Now, Kenny? Yeah, hand Kenny that ball.
Yeah.
He can hit that. Instead, he got 2 carries for 0 yards.
Yeah, what are we doing? Like, what is that? What is that decision making? I don't understand Who came up with that? Who thought that was a good idea? You could have pulled every single one of us in the chat right now, and we would have been like, "That's That's absolutely terrible. Do not run that play."
And yet the announcers were all saying, "Well, Alexander Madison can do anything Dalvin Cook can do. He's got great vision." It's like, this is how you can tell that these announcers don't watch Vikings games.
Yeah, that too. And we talked about
the announcing was terrible. The officiating was terrible. The fact that Kirk Cousins got his head absolutely turned around when somebody grabbed onto his face mask, and no flag was called, and that the announcers and the
that's not egregious. Isn't that what they said?
It's not egregious.
As his head is turned completely sideways like that. Completely sideways like that. Not egregious.
You ever try throwing a football when your head's getting yanked a different direction?
Yeah. You can't do it.
I mean, he's not a soda can. You don't, or a soda bottle. You don't spin his head off and then delicious cola comes out. That's not the way it works.
Oh, you know what else bothers me about this team and this coaching staff, Adam, is that you look at how they don't put players in positions to succeed, like we were talking about.
Right.
I feel bad for guys like C.J. Ham, Tyler Conklin, who are good players. they're good players at what they do, and then it's like, hey, we're on 3rd and long, 3rd and 18. I'm going to give the ball to Tyler Conklin on a 5-yard pass when there's no he's not making that play.
No.
You're putting him in a position to make fans hate him. And it's not his fault.
Yeah, when it's 3rd and 11 and the Vikings set up a pass 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, it's not a great idea. Not a great idea.
There are no leaders on this team.
Well, what's funny about that, Troy, is that this year Minnesota has the most team captains in franchise history. Yet, I don't see players out there other than a few. Maybe Eric Kendricks, Everson Griffin, despite not being a captain. He's got energy and he's always trying to get people pumped up. But
right.
Yeah, when those players are off the field, I don't know who's there to get the team pumped up, to get everybody on the same page. I would love to see that be Kirk Cousins. But for some reason, Kirk Cousins has that leash. Maybe Kirk Cousins doesn't feel comfortable being a leader, and maybe that's fine. I don't know. But there has to be someone.
He is not that. Kirk is not that rah-rah quarterback.
No.
We've seen him be asked to do that, and that's where we get that really awkward confrontation between Zimmer and Cousins, where it looked like they were ready to fight because he didn't know what was going on. Like that, that's not Kirk's personality. He's not that leader. Yeah,
it's true. It is true.
I'm trying to remember how much was Peterson pretty vocal when he was on the sidelines? Adrian Peterson.
No.
I don't.
No, not really. But yeah, I mean, I've seen Kendricks do it. I've seen Patrick Peterson do it with the secondary. But, I mean, this team lacks leadership. It lacks unity. Right now, it does seem like a bunch of players out on a field doing their thing. And that does, I believe, come down to the way this team is coached and the way that the offense and defense are divided so much. It's just sad to see a team with so much talent not take advantage of the players that they have and the situations that they have. And it just hurts me as a Vikings fan. It does. Because I know this team can be better. This is a playoff roster. When the season started, this team had the roster to maybe win a playoff game or two. And maybe even talk to them. Who knows? I'm not going to say why team, but they had the talent.
Yeah. That's why this season, I think, is going to be the one that the hammer finally falls on Zimmer and probably Spielman as well, too, is that you look at what this roster was, the expectations were so high coming in. To see them underperform like this, you have to hold someone accountable for this, Adam. And I definitely agree with Troy. They need to get they need to get under the younger players and light a fire. Like we're going to ask Justin Jefferson in year 3 to be that leader of this team. Like it's going to be up to some of these guys to step up and fill in that role. Like you had talked about, I think that we're going to be looking at a lot of guys that are a lot of fan favorite players who have been here for a while that are not going to be suiting up as a Minnesota Viking anymore. From Harrison Smith to potentially Dalvin Cook to
these young players. I'm not going to say the locker room area is toxic, but Minnesota has become so complacent. If they have a 500 season or a winning record, they don't see that as a loss. And honestly, they have to start looking at every single game as an opportunity to prove that they are a good football team. Go out there and play hard. And when the team seems to be so accepting of losses, especially games where they should have won, it's hurting. It's hurting the franchise as a whole because you want to create that winning atmosphere. You want a hungry roster that isn't happy with winning a few games here and there and maybe winning one game against Green Bay and then losing and ending up one game over 500. It's frustrating as all hell as a Vikings fan to see this.
Yeah. I agree, Adam. I definitely agree.
But yeah, I gave my game ball, so I don't think I need to give my donkey because it's Udo. I mean, I know that it's not on him aside from the false start. He did have some penalties and he did give up pressures, but honestly, I don't believe he was put in a position to succeed. So, yeah, he gets my donkey award, but I'm not sure it's all on him.
My game ball is going to go to Justin Jefferson. I don't have his stats in front of me, but he went over 100 yards receiving again.
I think he came like within 35 yards of the team record.
There was at one point where he had like 2-3 receptions, and it was more than the rest of the team combined.
And we got to talk about this because as I was watching the game, for some reason, it didn't even feel like Justin Jefferson was accumulating the yards. And then all of a sudden I looked at the stats and it was like, boom, where'd this come from? Yeah, are we starting to expect that greatness from him the way that we used to expect it from Adrian Peterson? Like 120 yards, we thought we would think that was a bad game for Adrian Peterson.
Like, oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, you're correct on that one, Adam. Well, part of the problem, too, is that I feel like right now Jefferson goes away for chunks of the game, and it's not because of his own fault or play on the field. It's just
defenses cue in on him.
Well, I'm going to say play calling is part of that issue as well, too. My donkey is going to be Mike Zimmer. I just think that was a very poor decision-making process that went into...
He made a lot of mistakes that game.
Leading up to it or even going into the game.
But yeah, this is a frustrating one. It's going to be a hard one to get past. Being a Vikings fan living in Michigan, honestly, I went on my Facebook, I went on my Twitter and being like, I said, I got a bad feeling about this one. It's not going to be a good game. This is the best chance this season that the Lions are going to have of getting a win. And honestly, now when I walk around Michigan in my Minnesota Vikings jacket and hat and everything, I'm going to get teased. It's going to happen. But you know what? I'm still a Vikings fan, and even though this team absolutely hurts me internally, right in the heart sometimes, it's just I'm going to keep supporting them, even if I don't like it.
It's issues with him that go back for so long, Troy. It's clock management. We've been talking about that since year one with Mike Zimmer. He's been bad at clock management. And
the end of halves are absolutely terrible. Look at how many times Minnesota's given up points at the end of the first half. How many times they've let teams drive down at the end of a game. Normal, like mid-game stuff seems fine.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? Play as if the clock isn't there. Don't send out your quarters defense when it's 11 yards from the goal line. Don't do it.
Yeah, our defensive mastermind head coach. Would you rather he ran the ball on the TD to Jefferson?
If they can get the ball in the end zone, whatever they think is the best route, I leave that up to the players. But while we're talking about play calling, I hope that the coaches are drawing up 3, 4, maybe even 5 plays for 2-point conversions and goal line situations, because whatever they were trying to do is just disgusting. Oh, I hear you, Michael Camber. The old school fans, at least they've got some of those nice 69, 70, those years with all the stars and the Purple People Eaters and Paul Krause and all those awesome players and games that they got to see. We've got the Minneapolis Miracle, and then we've got losing to the Lions.
There's a little in between, but you know.
Those are the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so frustrating when we got
trying to think about what the team is going to do next, Adam.
Next is Pittsburgh Thursday. Not much time to do anything else. You got to look ahead to that. And Thursday Night Football, primetime game for Vikings. Kirk Cousins gets to come out and sling it around. And
primetime Kirk.
Primetime Kirk. And the Vikings are going to be wearing their primetime purple. So, yeehaw.
As disappointed as we all are, and we have been for the past half hour, we said this before we started recording. You know what the most Vikings thing would be? For them to go out and just blow out the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. Get a win.
Oh, yeah.
They could. They very well could. Because there's still talent on this team.
And what is it? The Vikings have won 2 games on the road this year, is it?
I don't remember without looking.
Oh, it says 4-4 away. Okay. Yeah, well, never mind that. But Minnesota is a team that can always play better at US Bank Stadium when the crowd's there behind them. Maybe they'll be able to get one of the players that was up in the air a little bit for this game back, and that'll help out. But the Steelers are a mess, too. Mm-hmm. They got Big Ben, who's retiring after this year, and he hasn't looked like himself for 2 years now.
Yeah.
They got some of their defensive players back, and their defense is looking better. And honestly, as long as Darrisaw or Hill is back, the offense should be able to do okay. I did see that Mike Zimmer would not say that Adam Thielen is going to miss this game. But guess what? He's going to miss this game.
It's a high ankle sprain, right?
Right.
So he's pretty much done for the year.
You'd
right?
assume. But for some reason, they're holding on to him.
Hold on to that hope.
Because who knows? Maybe the Vikings can rattle off these 5 wins and put themselves in a position to be a playoff team. But honestly, I don't know if as much as I'd love to see the Vikings in the playoffs, don't get me wrong. I always want to see the Vikings win. I'll be cheering for a win every week. I will.
Yep.
But if this team makes the playoffs, I'd be shocked if they weren't one and done.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the sad truth of it all. Zimmer also said Cook was day-to-day last week. Yeah, his injury updates are the worst.
Danielle Hunter just had a tweak, right?
Oh, they're bad. They are absolutely bad. But
that's another player, Adam, that maybe we've seen the last of in Minnesota. Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, I was talking with my buddy Clint about this, and the way his contract is, the rest of the contract can be voided, and then what it is Minnesota can look, and they can look and see if they want to give Hunter a bigger contract. And honestly, I don't think you can do that now. So I think we're going to see Hunter go out and test free agency. And I think he'll get paid somewhere else. He'll get overpaid, but by a team that's got more money. And if he can stay healthy there, he'll be a very good player. But honestly, I don't think Minnesota can do it.
That's why I said it earlier in the show. We need that fresh set of eyes to come in and just make those tough decisions. Because Mike Zimmer is, and I get it, because I would be too. I would be too emotionally invested in keeping Danielle Hunter, because we know when he's healthy, he can be an excellent player.
Absolutely.
For the team. The problem is, though, is that what you're paying him versus what you're going to get in return, when you factor in the injury history, it's just not. I just don't think it's worth it for this team right now.
No, and I've mentioned Michael Pierce as a player that could be possibly moved on from as well, and that hurts because I liked him coming into Minnesota, but honestly, Watts, I don't think there's a drop off.
It's not working with Pierce.
And then you got all these Vikings on the 1-year deals. You got Woods that I'd love to see come back to Minnesota. Patrick Peterson, who would take quite a bit of money to come back to Minnesota on a 1-year deal. Breland, give or take there.
Yeah.
I don't see them offering. Breland's going to be in the same situation he was last year with the Chiefs. Minnesota's going to be like, well, we'll take you back at really cheap. And he's going to want more money, and he's going to go out, and he's going to sit in free agency for a while. And it's not going to be pretty, but
he'll find a home.
Mean, Minnesota is already in a really bad salary cap situation. They're going to have to clear some money, and they're not going to be able to spend to bring players in. And they've got that huge contract year. Was it 30-some million for Kirk Cousins? Because they kicked the can down the road to give Kyle Rudolph an extension. I remember my Kyle Rudolph extension rant, so I apologize for that again if you ever heard me do it. So my bad on that one.
It's going to be messy here for a couple seasons, while whoever comes in next has to figure out how do you start rebuilding a team, but you have to keep guys like Justin Jefferson happy, because that's a piece that we want long term. So we're rebuilding, but we have to be competitive. But then we also have these larger contractual issues that we have to deal with.
Troy's got a heavy question there.
What's that?
Do you guys actually think this year's defense was better than last year's? And the problem is that I believe that the defense this year is much more talented than last year's. But I don't believe that they're put in the right positions to win. The way that this Vikings defense has been called has been absolutely atrocious. And last year, the biggest problem was Minnesota had no pass rush. Well, right now, Everson Griffin's getting himself taken care of, and 100% he's making the right decision, so I'm not going to get on him about that. Danielle Hunter's hurt. Yeah.
We're always on Team Everson Griffin. Yeah.
Danielle Hunter's hurt. He has really no way he can step in, and we're left in that situation again from last year where we have no pass rushers. I believe the cornerbacks this year are probably a little bit better than last year's. The linebackers, Eric Kendricks is always going to be amazing in my eyes. He's a great guy, great player, can do anything. Anthony Barr, I don't see him sticking around in Minnesota, but again, I mean, he is what he is at this point. So, yeah, I think that this Vikings defense right now is more talented than last year's.
Is it better? To be honest, I'm going to say no. For as much of a focal point as what they put on the defense in the offseason, I'm bringing it in. I mean, if you listen to this show or any other show, we were talking about how, oh, man, look at how much the Vikings have invested on the interior of that defensive line. Like
the mini boys.
We're going to shut down the run. It's Williams Wall 2.0. They can't stop the run. They can't do it. And I know that there's been injuries like we've talked about and everything else. It's not working. And so for that reason, I'm going to say no. There's no real difference between last year and this year on defense.
Oh, well, like we said, this is going to be a really, really
$56 million downgrade.
Well, when Patrick Peterson's healthy, opposing quarterbacks don't throw at him. They don't, because they respect
Correct.
him and his abilities. So, for me, Patrick Peterson alone makes this defense better. And when Everson Griffin's out there and Danielle Hunter's available, this team is significantly better defensively. But as it stands at the moment, it's looking pretty rough. Sorry, I was looking at my cat, who looks like he might jump through the glass of the window, and I don't like this.
You know who I feel bad for, Adam? I kind of feel a little bad for Patrick Peterson. Here he spent all those years in Arizona when Arizona was terrible. And when he hits free agency, and I don't know how many places he had options to go to, but he picks Minnesota thinking that he'll be a big piece of a defense we're gonna make a run for it. We have a terrible year. And meanwhile, look at Arizona. Look at the season they're having.
Yeah. But it looks like the trend's going to continue because I believe Minnesota finishes out this year in Green Bay, right?
Is it It's Chicago.
Or is it Chicago?
The final three: Bears, Rams, Packers, Bears.
All right, so I hope you guys are ready because we are going to get Sean Mannion in Week 18.
You really think so?
Because Minnesota will be eliminated from the playoffs. There'll be no reason to play Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson will be within reach, maybe like 100 and some yards, of beating Randy Moss's single-season Vikings receiving record, and he won't play because they'll sit him.
Oh, you're making some friends right now, Adam.
It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be super duper frustrating. And as much as I love this team, they're not giving me a lot of reasons to be excited about them.
You don't think if that happens, they'll start Kellen Mond?
No. He's not listed as a number 2.
Do you think they should?
No.
Do you think just get him out?
Not as a rookie.
Field? Not as a rookie. Not as a. I mean, he hasn't been active.
Neither one of them looked good in the preseason.
Fair.
And I don't think either one of them will be good against any team.
And also, I guess if you do believe that this whole coaching staff is going to be gone, what's the point of putting Kellen Mond in a situation with a lame duck coaching staff for a final game of the season?
Yeah, let Mannion go out and just donk this thing away.
We're just going to sacrificial lamb Mannion because he ain't going to be back. So we're not too worried about that. Yeah, you're right.
And you got these teams with backup quarterbacks coming in and winning games. Gardner Minshew comes in for the Eagles and just absolutely crushes things.
Can we get him in Minnesota?
I wanted him here. But no, instead we waited for the Seahawks to cut Sean Mannion so we could bring him back.
You see Adrian signed with Seattle?
I did, and I've heard that they're thinking about making a big role for him in their offense, and they're quickly going to realize that isn't the Adrian Peterson of old.
My friend Jeff is a Seahawks fan, and he was super excited that they signed Adrian Peterson. And I'm like, that's a good signing from 5 years ago.
Maybe not even 5. We're talking 10.
Well, he had that 1,000-yard season in Washington. How long ago was that? About 5?
Yeah, maybe, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be back next week, and we're going to talk about that game.
Next week, we're going to be back Thursday. What are you talking about?
Oh, if you're back Thursday, I'm not back Thursday.
It's a short week, Adam.
If you record on Thursday, I won't be here.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, probably this weekend, right?
that would probably work best.
Yeah.
But we'll be back to talk about next week's game. Because, like Mr. West and I said, the Vikings are probably going to come out and just beat the absolute pants off the Steelers, and it's going to be like 58-12, and it's just going to be absolutely stupid because that's what Minnesota does.
They'll make you believe again temporarily for 1 week. Oh, look at what they're able to do. We're going to make a run for it. Vikings social media will bring back the big heads, which, boy, when they retire Spielman and Mike Zimmer.
I can't wait for the big heads to go away.
Can they retire the big head photos on social media, please?
But if you don't know all the lyrics to Let's Go Crazy by Prince, by the end of this game against the Steelers, you'll know them all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we don't have a Survival League update because that's over. So that's kind of sad. But you can follow us on pretty much everywhere because we just got on iHeart recently. We're on Spotify, iTunes. The entire catalog of shows is on YouTube. If you want to listen to us, there's really no excuse because we're anywhere. We go live on our YouTube channel, Facebook Live, as well as my personal YouTube channel, or my personal Twitch channel, MN Viking Zombie. You can check out my socials. I'm on MN Viking Zombie on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. So if you want some content, if you want to see more of this face, I'll be there. You can also go to the Viking Age. I just released my 6 takeaways from this game against the Lions, and I feel a little bit bad because I was a little bit mean, and I don't like being mean. But sometimes you just gotta be a little mean. You can also check me out over on Undead Walking. I released an article the other day about how the governor came about and how he at one point was President Noah, which is not nearly as scary of a name.
No, not at all.
I got Mew creeping behind me on the camera.
I see that.
And you can check out Kyle West's stuff. There's I believe, a link to his merch pinned on the Facebook page. You can go click there and buy some stuff. Otherwise, KyleWest84.pickfair.com to buy really some pretty cool art that you can put on your wall, make a great gift. I don't know if it'd get there by the holidays right now, but hey, I mean, make great gifts. I went a pretty long time, I'd say maybe 3-4 years, where all I did for my sister was buy her art for her house. And she put it all up on the wall, and boy, it made everything look really cool in there. Yeah, so it really does. Art makes a better gift than people realize. Mm-hmm. Or it can spruce up your own home pretty nicely, depending on whatever vibe you're going for.
Just so you guys know that, yes, the 84 is because of Randy Moss.
You weren't born in 84?
No, 87.
Good Lord, you kids.
84 is for Randy Moss. See, the Vikings connections always run deep, Adam.
Michael Jenkins, 84.
Molasses Mike.
Jinxie Cat, he hates that. Don't call him Jinxie Cat. He asked me not to, but I still do. Because I'm a jerk.
I like it.
It's better than Molasses Mike. It is. That he probably can't disagree with. But yeah, we'll be back to talk about that game. Hopefully we'll have all 3 of us, and it'll be a more positive show. But for
probably
now,
not, but
try to keep your chin up. Try to think about all the good things the Vikings bring us. Like US Bank Stadium. Beautiful stadium.
Yeah.
So hopefully people can go there on Thursday night, have a good time, cheer on the Vikings. And guess what? You might be able to go on TickPick or whatever your favorite ticket resale site is and get yourself a nice
What? Don't do that.
Always go on TickPick, man. Those tickets are so cheap. It's a great site. But yeah, hopefully people can swoop up some cheap tickets for purple and gold and be there and support the team and hopefully rally them back from whatever this was this week. Because, good Lord, we all know that we need it. Thanks again to everyone who joined us in the chat, whether it's Michael or Troy or anyone else who joined along the way. I believe we had Andrew and several others in here. You guys always make the chat so much better. We'll be back to talk about the Steelers next week. Stay classy, Minnesota.